Talk us through, we've been waiting, haven't we, patiently for those findings into what happened with Nord Stream. What's your read?
We have, and the Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2 gas pipelines, as you said, were blown up, as the Swedes have found out. And the Swedes have been carrying out a detailed investigation to try and identify who's done it. The Russians are the favourite. The Russians have denied any involvement. They've blamed the British and the Royal Navy for getting involved in it. But the Swedes have now got conclusive evidence that there was explosive traces at the sites of where the pipelines have been disrupted. Those explosive traces, whenever they're analysed, should be able to tell you where the explosives have been manufactured, certainly which country. However, it's easy to put a false flag using explosives, so that's probably why they haven't released that information at the moment until they can verify it through other means. But this is a perfect example of Putin's economic war against Europe and against the West, and we're all suffering from it, as we found out in the budget yesterday, and he's continuing to do that. He's also continuing with his economic war against the Ukrainian people. And inside Ukraine itself, he's attacking energy infrastructure there. So he's hitting us all on all fronts.
And how long before we get that composition analysis in public domain, do you think?
That's impossible to say. It's up to the Swedish investigators. And the Swedish investigators, they're coming at it from a neutral perspective. They're going to have to look at the different countries that are involved and run it through all of them. And they will almost certainly go to the Russians behind closed doors and say, this is the findings that we've got. Have you got any comeback on it? There's a good chance it might leak at some stage in there. No pun intended. But we just don't know when they're going to conclude this.
OK. And talk us through, we're going to get our handy map up on the screen for you to use as a tool there, Philip. Talk us through what is the latest on the ground.
The latest on the ground, as I mentioned, the Russians have continued their attacks with cruise missiles and Iranian kamikaze drones and other things against critical national infrastructure, in particular power plants and water plants across Ukraine. Slightly less missiles last night than we had on that massive wave, which resulted in the cross-Polish border explosion, unfortunately killing 2 people. But again, this is part of Putin's economic war. Attack the will of the people, to try and break the will of the politicians, to put real pressure over the winter months. From a military perspective, from a tactical perspective, the Russians are still continuing to attack in the Bakhmut, Donetsk area and try and capture the whole of that Donetsk Oblast, which we can see from the black line labelled Donbass region, that's there, to try and get some form of success. They've been doing this for weeks now, and they're not achieving very much. What we haven't seen any evidence of yet is that the troops that the Russians will have released from giving up the Kherson region, actually getting up into that area, and Defence Intelligence, UK Defence Intelligence, has said that they are still refurbishing before they do that. And then the Ukrainians up further north of Bakhmut, in an area that's the Savatony-Crimea line, are preparing to attack in, according to the Russians. We're getting nothing from the Ukrainians, but this is Russian reporting. We don't know where the next Ukrainian main effort will be. They've had now their success in Kherson. After they had success up in the Kharkiv area, they may switch back to the north again.